would hear this on tape or CD, I'd like to go over a few things about the practical aspects of church, about coming into church, when we do certain things. And one of the first things that seems to be a form of confusion in the church is, when do we stand and when do we sit? And I know that usually it's with the first person in the first row. When they're standing, everybody else stands. If they don't know, if there's some people standing and there's some people sitting, everyone will stand because they figure that the person who's sitting is wrong. And if you don't have anybody in the front row, you look to the second row, and it's usually for the yaya or whoever knows really what's going on in the church. There's pretty basic guidelines for standing. In the early church, everyone stood. There was no pews. Everyone stood. They were ready to move at an instant. They were ready to get up and to go. The church in the early days was under persecution, so people didn't have the luxury of coming together and to have a full church set up. They would set up the church, they would leave, and most people would be standing for the whole service. Although the early agape meals were sitting. When Christ came to the disciples and he said, "Do this in remembrance of me," they were all sitting at a table. So that form of communion that Christ established, people were sitting down at a table enjoying a dinner together. And when he appeared again after he rose from the dead, likewise they were sitting at a table having that remembrance meal, that agape meal. But for our standards today, when we should stand is during the entrances, when anytime the door opens, the deacon comes out with the priest, and anytime there's the gospel or the altar boys, a full procession, whether it's in front here, whether it's around the church, whether it's a special service. Special services usually require that people kneel when it's a full procession around the church, whether the priest has the cross or the epitaphio or whatever it is. It usually requires kneeling at that point. But anytime there's an entrance or a procession. Also, during the gospel reading, because the reason for the standing at the gospel reading is you hear the word of God, you listen to it, and you're ready to get up and to go out and to preach it to the world. So that's why you stand during the gospel reading. We stand during the creed and the Lord's Prayer, of course. We also stand during communion, which is a sign of respect. I know that if it's long, sometimes people will sit down, but to remember that we're supposed to stand for that because Christ is approaching each and every one of us, and we stand up in anticipation of that. I think that there wouldn't be a person in the entire church or in the entire world, if someone came out with a bag of $1,000 bills and was throwing it out like this, that somebody would just be sitting back and looking on. They would be standing, they would be running, trying to get it and to take it. So this likewise with Holy Communion, when Christ comes to us, who is really priceless, we should be standing in anticipation of coming forward. Also, in the special services that we have, whether it's a memorial service, whether it's an Artoklasia service, a 40-day blessing, all those little special services that we have at the end of the service require our standing as well. One of the most important times we stand, and I know that some people are confused, is when we're sensed, when the priest senses or the deacon senses, and also when the priest blesses. Anytime the priest turns around, the people should be standing. So it's most of the time, if you think about the liturgy, when we stand and when the priest turns around and faces the community, he's ready to bless the community. He doesn't really just stand there and face out for no reason. He either has communion, he's reading, or he's blessing. So those are really times, all those times are when we should be standing as well. But that doesn't preclude the need to sit. I know that sometimes, our service, you're pretty lucky to have me as a priest because we move pretty quickly through the service, or not quickly, but we don't drag it out. Let's put it that way. And but sometimes the services are longer. There's times on Holy Thursday and Holy Week, and also when we might have visiting clergy or a visiting preacher, feast days, those kinds of things where the service is longer. If you need to sit down. If you feel dizzy and you feel like, even if it's during communion, you say, well, I have to stand because Father told me to stand. If you feel sick, sit down. That's the number one thing. So the pews are there for not only for your comfort, but also there to help you pray better. I would hate for somebody to say, well, Father told us we had to stand during communion, and communion was 45 minutes long, and I passed out, and I never made it to communion, and I had to go to the hospital, and all these things, because then it's not a prayerful atmosphere for you. So the pews are here to help you pray better. If your legs are hurting, or you have a thrown out back, or you have a pinched nerve in your leg, and you want to come to church, sit down. You can sit for the whole service. I'm not going to come up to you and yell at you and say, why didn't you stand? It's understandable that people have problems or just the inability to stand for a long period of time. So that's when you can stand or sit. If you see all the yayas in the front row standing and you feel dizzy and you need to sit, please sit down. But usually, I know that there's some good barometers of when you should stand and sit in the front pews if Father or myself don't tell you when to stand or sit. So you can kind of follow. Bess knows what she's doing up there too. When we do our cross, it's very important that we don't join a band and play bouzouki, or that we do it so many times that, my mom told me I had to do it 40 times and you're, 32, 33, 30. No, just do it. I prefer that you do it once properly. Do it once properly. That you start on your head, you go down, you do it deliberately and properly and bow, and that you don't do like a small one either. Some people think I'm doing it slow, but it's small. That's not the way it should be. It should be here, right side, left side, and back. When do we do our cross? We do our cross when we're censed. We do our cross when the priest blesses us. We do our cross when we hear remembering our most holy, pure, blessed and glorious Lady of the Theotokos, or Tispaneias Sakrando Ipedavlogimenis. We do it for that. We do it every time we hear now and forever into the ages of ages. Amen. Anytime you hear Amen, you do your cross. So that's a very practical time to do your cross as well. And if you're saying your own personal prayers, of course, you can feel free to do your cross at any time that you feel you want to do it, because as the fathers of the church say, when we do the cross, it sends away all the evil and casts away our temptation as well. So you can do the cross, but just make sure you do it properly. Clothing in the church. Everyone asks me, can you wear pants in church, Father? Women or men, do we have to wear ties? Do we have to do this? I always tell people, if you were going to meet your favorite movie star, your favorite singer, you were going to meet the President of the United States, or someone special, how would you dress? And then I say, dress like that for church. So that's the way we need to dress for church. Now, that doesn't mean that if someone comes in jeans, I've had this happen before. Someone came in jeans and a lumberjack shirt, and they came to church, and there was a big, everybody's like, oh, look at him, he didn't dress right, he's got jeans, he's got work boots on. And the man had a near-death experience at work. He was a construction worker and came in, and he was an Orthodox man, and he came into church, and he wanted to pray. And people were looking at him like, who's that? What did that guy come in here for? And why didn't he change into his nice clothes? Well, not every time are we afforded the opportunity to do that. So that doesn't mean that if we see somebody, we should be saying, oh, you should dress better, you should do this better, because you never know what the circumstances are of people. Not only what brought them to church that minute, but also their financial standing as well. So I always say that clothing should be respectful and should be appropriate for meeting God. You can come in if you want. It's okay. I'm going to talk about when you can come in and can't come in a minute. Attendance in church is paramount to our life. We should be attending church regularly. And again, I said I'm preaching to the choir loft because all of you are here, your standard fixtures, and you have your particular pew and your section in the pew and everything. But our attendance should be frequent, and our time to arrive to church should be appropriate too. I don't think there's a person in the world that would go to a baseball game in the 9th inning, or would go to have front row tickets to Phantom of the Opera and show up 10 minutes before it's over. Nobody would do that. But in church, not everyone, but a lot of faithful feel that they can come at whatever time, pick up where they left off, grab their book. What page are we on? Okay, here we go, and then pick up and pray. We can't do that. It's not prayer, really, to do that, to just come in and jump in running. You can't run a race like that. You can't go to the Boston Marathon, come in 16 miles into the marathon and jump in and start running with everybody else and say, okay, I'm going to win the race. You can't do it. You're cheating. But you're not cheating me, you're not cheating God, but you're cheating yourself if you come late to church. So, again, all those who aren't here really should be hearing this, and you who are here are in good standing. So, when you come for communion, the women, it's not as bad as it used to be, but women, to please wipe off your lipstick, and unless you have that no stick stuff or that permanent thing or whatever that is now that doesn't come off, that's okay. But please, I don't like, as a priest, putting a spoon in someone's mouth and pulling it out with more than I put in. And usually it comes out red when people have lipstick on. So that's an important thing. Also, as well as, we're supposed to fast in the morning. We're not supposed to receive any food unless we have a medical condition that we need medicine or something. But please, 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 there's one thing I want you to put in your mouth every single time you come to church, and that's a toothbrush. Toothbrush and toothpaste. Please brush your teeth. Because it sounds silly. Some people say, well, I can't put water in my mouth or whatever. You need, as you fast and pray to come to communion and you clean your soul, you also need to clean your mouth as well, and to have that a proper place to receive God into your heart. So please brush your teeth and do whatever oral hygiene that you need to do in the morning before you come to church. The parts when the priest is out and when people come in, I know we kind of trickle in now, which is okay, but there's certain sections of the liturgy when people should not be coming into the church or coming up front here, or basically the solea, as I tell people, is closed during the liturgy. If you'd like to venerate the icons, you can do that during the orthros, you can do it after service, but during the liturgy, no one should be up on the solea. And I know when we have memorials, people come up and it's, they put a candle inside, and there's people kind of trickling in. And most of the times it's not people from our community that's from, but other communities where people come and they come up and they put it in there. It's very, very distracting. Not only to the deacon, who most of the service is standing in the center of the solea and watching people come up, but I know that anytime someone comes up onto the solea, no matter what you're doing, you could be having a vision of God in the pew, and you're going to turn and look at that person and watch them struggle up the stairs and be careful not to slip, and their feet are probably wet because they just came in from outside, and they're digging for their candle and they're trying to light it, and they can't, and it keeps going out, and it's a huge ordeal watching people do that. So if you can spread the word, the solea is closed during the liturgy. The candles on the side the receptacles on the side for the candles are for the candles. I know that many times people like to put them up in the front. That's okay to put them up in the front before liturgy starts. But during the liturgy, like I said, it's closed. What we do with those candles, the ones that are up in the front, don't think we throw them out, but after the service we put them into the glass containers, because I came from a church that had 2 fires from those particular candles not being properly placed in the container. So that's when we put those in there as well. So for processions, no one should be entering into the church. For the reading of the epistle and the gospel, no one should be entering into the church. The great procession, during the creed, during the say numen, or the consecration of the gifts, when the priest says, let us take, eat, this is my body, no one should be coming in or out or moving to different places. During Holy Communion, in the early church, when they were ready to serve Holy Communion, they would close the doors. When we say tastitas, and we do the cloth over. That meant the doors, close the doors. And then they would, boom, they'd close the doors, they'd lock them, and that was it. If you weren't in, you were out. And that was to prevent people from coming in and disgracing the church. Because a lot of times people would wait and they'd say, well, they're gonna bring out their holy articles. When we come out from the entrance and we bring out the chalice and we bring all those things, those were coming from different areas, locked areas in different parts of the church and different parts of the complex. And they would bring them out, and then they would say, okay, now we're going to reveal them, so close everything up. So everything was kept under tight guard so that nothing would be disgraced. And that's why in the early church they prayed in the catacombs, they prayed in the tombs of different people so that they wouldn't be persecuted, and that the Holy Communion and the appointments for the church, the chalice and all those things, would not be disgraced. So during Holy Communion, I know is really it's kind of like the Exodus, when from the outside they all come in, everyone comes in during Holy Communion, and because of space, because of bad habits, that's become a bad habit in the church. But in the early days, Holy Communion, once it was Holy Communion, the door was locked. And I know that there was a Father Hondras at St. Andrew's Church many years ago would tell his board members, when I come out for Holy Communion, you close the doors. They locked the doors of the church. And people were on the outside just banging on and then after he was done with communion, he opened the doors and that was it. So I'm not going to do that to you, don't worry about that. But it's a thing to remember that you just can't come in, jump into the race, and expect to win the prize at the end. During the sermon, now I've been pretty tolerant with cell phones, but last week it kind of got to me. So please, if you have a cell phone, and I want to announce it before my sermon again this week, if you have a cell phone, please learn how to use it, number one. Learn how to turn it off and to mute it before you come into the church. And if you forget to do that, please do it in the church before the sermon. Otherwise, we'll have to put a little basket up here with a collection that'll say cell phones, and then I'll come down and collect your cell phone and bring it up here and call Greece with it. Anytime there's special services, whether it's a 40-day blessing, whether it's a memorial service or whatever, we're not supposed to be moving around in the church as well. If you have a memorial service, if you're doing a memorial service and you want candles on there, I know sometimes they look like birthday cakes with all the candles. We really only need one candle. But if you want more candles on there, and it's in the middle of the liturgy and you have a wad of candles and you don't know what to do with them, please see one of the board members and give those candles to the board members. They will bring them in the back, and then when we come out for the memorial, we will place them in there and take care of that for you. So you don't have to worry about it. So if you have a memorial and you have people coming from out of town, from another church, whatever, please tell them to give you the candles or give the board members the candles, and the board members will take care of that for you. So these are just some basic things, and like I said, I'm preaching to the choir. Now the choir's here, so I'm preaching to the choir and the choir loft. But these are some things just to keep in mind. And we're going to go over more of these things as time goes on too. But I think it's important to know why we do things and the practicality of things, because I really don't want you to go before God and have Him say to you, you can come into heaven, but you have to answer one question. Why do you do your cross? And then you just look at them, you need to know these things. And we all need to know these things so that we can move forward, and so that our children and our families can know what it is that the Orthodox Church is and what the Orthodox Church really means. Because if we don't know that, then it's pointless to be here. It's really, we don't treasure really what we have. And we have the greatest faith, and we have the richest traditions, but we have to learn them little piece by piece. That's why I call this the vitamin. You don't take all your vitamins at one time. You take one a day, and that's it. So that's why this is called the Sunday vitamin. So now we will begin the liturgy, and I pray that you have a prayerful experience in the liturgy as well.